Welcome to BARN. My name is Jessica Doobie. I'm the lead for the Writers Studio here, as a volunteer position. This place is pretty much run by volunteers, so thank them when you see them.
Thank you, Jessica.
Jen back there, Jen Hemmingson is our programming coordinator and has helped put this whole program together. We're so excited to have Michele Bombardier, who is our Poet Laureate of Bainbridge Island. A new thing. And BARN is just really thrilled to be able to host these monthly readings and open mic for poetry. So it's the first one last month was well attended. Thank you for so many people coming back. If you're coming back, welcome if it's your first time. If you want to know anything about BARN, if you're not familiar, you can come flag me down. I can give you that spiel. Tonight we have a featured reader. I'm not going to say too much because I think Michele will introduce her, Susan Landgraf. And I just want to thank our sponsors. We've got Arts and Humanities Bainbridge, Kobe, Laurel, Town and Country has graciously given us all these lovely cookies. So grab a fistful on your way out. Otherwise, they'll go down and they will be enjoyed by other visitors to the studios. And BARN. So thank you. Welcome.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming for another Third Thursdays, another bomb at BARN. We're going to start with a land acknowledgement. We'd like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is within the territory of the people of the clear salt water, the Suquamish people. Expert fishermen, canoe builders, and basket weavers, the Suquamish live in harmony with the lands and waterways along Washington's Central Salish Sea, as they have for thousands of years. Here the Suquamish live and protect the land and waters of their ancestors for future generations, as promised by the Point Elliott Treaty of 1855. We gather tonight in community to celebrate poetry. What do we know of poetry? Along with her siblings, music, and storytelling, poetry has always been with us across time and place. We join our voices as part of a great ongoing conversation. This is our second gathering of BARN. It will be, of course, every third Thursdays. And again, we have a kick-ass feature reader, Susan Landgraf. And her books will be for sale afterwards. Support your local poets by showing them love, which means buy their books. Buy their books and then buy more books to pass their books on to everybody. And I want to talk about upcoming poetry events. On Saturday, does everybody know what's happening on Saturday? On Saturday, there's an event at BIMA to celebrate the Day of Remembrance. Sharon Hashimoto won the Book of the Year this year for her book, More American. And we're very lucky to have her this weekend to come and share that. There will be a survivor speaking, a rare and precious opportunity to hear a survivor also tell her story. It's 5 to 6, it's free, everybody come. Also, the other thing coming down the pike, on March 3rd, on Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock, there's going to be a reception at City Hall to honor the Poet Laureate program. So come, there will be snacks, and I want to see friendly faces, so everybody come, okay? That's Friday, March 3rd at 3 o'clock. And then the feature we're going to have next month is Jasmine Elizabeth Smith is coming to read. It's Poetry Corner season. Thank you, Tamara, who is running that. And you can sign up for that on poetrycorners.com. And I think those are I think that's it. Did I miss anything of all the wonderful things that we have coming down the pike? Okay, so there's 2 sign-up sheets. Mandy, could you grab me both of those clipboards? One of them is the open mic list, but the other is we're going to circulate the clipboard for everyone to sign. Give me us your contact information so we can get an email list of all things poetry. Isn't that a good idea? Yeah. Right? So that's going to circulate.
If you signed in last week, you're on the list.
No, do it again.
Do
Do it again. Because I'm not going to name names, but somebody doesn't know where that list is. Don't trust me. Okay, so let's get going. Tonight is our feature is Susan Landgraf. Susan is a beloved poet and teacher in the Puget Sound area. She is the author of What We Bury Changes the Ground. She's the editor of The Inspired Poet. She's published well over 400 poems in various literary journals and anthologies. She taught at Highline College for over 40 years and at the Port Townsend Writers Conference for many, many years. And she has too many honors and awards to list. But most important to me, Susan is my writing partner. And we're going to do something a little bit different. For the past 3 years, Susan and I have meet online 3 times a week. And we're going to talk, and we have 2 pieces of new work a week, and then we do revision 1 day a week. So we're going to spend some time talking a little bit about that. And we're going to show you a prompt, and then each read what we got from that prompt. Does that sound good? Yeah. Okay, come on up, Susan. This is Susan Landgraf.
She forgot to mention that we're also friends. Good friends? I noticed she forgot.
Best of friends. Okay.
So, and can I say about how this started?
Yeah.
Michele and I were going to go on a residency, and which means you go and you write, and you get away, so that there are no toilets to clean, clothes to wash, etc. And then COVID happened, and so Michele, because she's so bright, said, "Well, why don't we do this online? Why don't we do it together, just not at a residency?" So this began in, I think, early 2020, right? So we've been doing this, what, 3 years now. And we still love each other.
So the first prompt that so we just throw each other. Also know that Susan wrote a book of prompts. That's The Inspired Poet. So it's a little daunting, coming up with prompts to the person who literally wrote the book. But we do it. So this is a prompt on a how-to poem. Write a poem that's a how-to poem. Why don't you read that one that's reflecting?
Yeah. And I think the thing about this is, so we had the prompt, and then we each go and write whatever, and how different we each approach the subject matter. Then the process is that we critique it. For instance, the assignment is on Friday, then we write, and Monday we bring whatever we produced and we critique it, which means we really dig deep to find out what's wrong with it, but also to say, oh, that's pretty good. And then our job is to go and fix it or add to it or delete or whatever. And then on Revision Friday, we can bring back any poem that we've done in the past. But this was my take. Reflecting, and maybe I need to ask, are any of you familiar with Tu Fu? He's sometimes in the United States known as Du Fu. So it depends on the translation and the time period, but I am very much enthralled with Chinese mythology and history. I taught in China for 4 different times, and I'm very much into China in spite of the politics. So, reflecting on Tu Fu's teaching of absence and presence. Whether it's a lone tree within double gates to a courtyard, or the moon shining on the path, I too wish for quiet. Whether it's possible to detach from a permanent self or not, I can practice yes this and no that. 2 paths together. Whether it's true the sun is a carriage driven by the Sun Mother, and a rabbit lives on the moon, 10,000 things emerge. Whether fable or true, that rivers flow from the east over Star River and return in the west, the origin moment waits. Wine is wine, and sorrow and joy are twins.
And my how-to poem, How to Marriage. Wipe the crumbs from the counter, even if you didn't make the sandwich. Pour 2 cups of tea, add honey. Smear toothpaste on both brushes. Slip to the grocery on rainy winter nights if there's no milk for the morning. Watch for the small kindness that dissipate the clouds of discontent. Expand the sky in your house. Sometimes, though, storms blow in, usually a squall, sometimes low pressure that builds until something breaks. Sometimes you will lose yourself. Yes, lost. You float like a let-go birthday balloon with your partner on the ground watching you fade. But you choose to return feet first back to solid ground because love is lunacy, as in lunar pull. Each gentleness a stone in the walls of the house you build and rebuild together. My advice, paint your ceilings blue. I read that at my son's wedding. The next prompt that we had is write a poem with a bird in it. And I wrote How She Stood There, and you wrote New Suburban. Right.
So you go first.
Okay, I'll go first. How she stood there. I remember the glimpse of wings, the thud of impact. How I pulled over, walked back along the rural highway where I found a Canadian goose splayed on the shoulder, and a smaller goose standing over him, immobile. How she looked at me. I knew enough to stand back. No other cars in sight. Silence. Then she dipped her head, ran her beak along his side, her eyes on mine. May I never forget the walk back to my car, the lurch of my VW Beetle into first gear, the small sentry in my rearview mirror.
Part of what we do too is to prompt each other to send our work out. So it's more than just on our pages. This one is called New Suburban Development Down the Road. The woman of the house with its blue door fills the bird feeders, waters the peonies and chrysanthemums in her garden. As the cat curls in the grass and a butterfly sculpture spins, she talks to the monarchs and chickadees, owl in the fir tree, crows in the pines, and listens to the wind play their branches. She is attuned to these, the inhabitants of her kingdom. Though she knows the meaning of transience, hers are celebratory kinds of days, living the minute, the hour. She doesn't see it coming. Cat dead, her fall, the nursing home. She doesn't see or hear bird feeders taken down, the tree cutters and bulldozers, her garden paved over, and the leftover rudder-stitted butterflies stuck in the ground on a rod, burning the air with their soldered wings.
Another prompt we had was write a poem about the cosmos or stars or the galaxy or something out there. And this is my poem, Stardust. My mother will be returning to the night sky soon. I see it in her shuffle, the swelling in her ankles, the glazing over of her eyes. When she can't hear, she hides behind columns of anger and suspicion. Maybe we're not only stars, but their explosion. She's hurtling away from me, I feel it. Intergalactic medium, they call it, the space between stars, mostly hydrogen, almost water. I remember floating as a child in the pool in our backyard. My mother on her floaty, sometimes bumping up against me in her sunglasses, hat, our faces tipped to the sun.
Michele?
Oh, you're gonna do,
She's the coordinator. Haven.
Here.
Yeah.
I'm gonna now give it over.
We were gonna, well,
We're gonna do more.
she's taken over, so, okay. This is Haven on Earth as in heaven. I have 20 clocks, each set at different times. A tourist in my own house I call heaven. Outside, under the crows and sycamores, every stone is called stone, but holding its own interior and place. The bridge has only one song, but it links one side with the other. Once we were tethered to wall clocks, cords plugged into sockets and telephones hung on the wall, with an operator on the line. Batteries and pacemakers, now computers in our pockets. We live and breathe in a Star Trek world. Sleep on mattresses that remember our bodies. I will slip between the sheets in my bed, under the stars, tonight, even if I can't see them behind the clouds. But upon rising, I'll find Hubble's newest photo posted on the internet and believe in that heaven so more vast than I'd ever imagined. When I remember, I really do go every morning. Well, not really every morning because I have to remember, but have any of you ever gone to see those Hubble photographs? Talk about figuring where your place is in the world. Whoa. Okay. I'm going to read a couple now that aren't prompted. Sorry. Okay. I'm going to read one from What We Bury Changes the Ground. It kind of gives you a sense of where I come from, just a wee insight. It's called Finding My Grandmother's Birthplace, Ushku, Hungary. She went grave to grave, under shawl, apron, babushka, on a hot August afternoon. Tin watering can held her lopsided among the wilted daisies, sky ripped open by jets. Horses clip-clopped the cobblestones, wagons piled high with hay, air filled with the drone of bees. She rose with dried leaves swept from the plots, pointed to a thatched house, stooped again. Sun hot, weeds stirred in a poof of breeze in the ditch by the graves. Joseph Negi Tomaskovich. And then I have a chapbook, and it's published by Ravenna Press. There are some copies over there. It's a series called Triples, and it's because there are 3 poets, sometimes they're artists, that appear in the same chapbook. They're beautiful, well done, and Catherine's been doing these for some years now, but they're amazing. And so my contribution in 1717 is called Crossings, and I'm going to read you 2 poems out of that book. I, by the way, love crows, and where I live, there are crows, like lots of crows, but I love them. They are so smart, and they're very clever as well. Crowkeeper, he blasphemed one out. Its slick wings cut the air over his head, gripped his faith in dominion. Waving his arms all day against wings and beaks, gleaming black eyes the size of buckshot, he got down on his knees. He watched them make tools, dig, talk their talk. He knew, they knew his face. He couldn't tell them apart. He couldn't tell them apart, but he stood up for the fields, for the harvest, for the fake dancer he had become, knowing that before existence, there must have been the sound of calling. And then another poem about birds. This will give you a little more insight into where I come from. Her father, and you know that in a poem you could do I, you can do she, you can do there. So this is her. Her father had this way with wood. The subfloor sheets had been laid perpendicular to the joints in staggered rows, the seams offset, the stud walls square on the floor platform. cripple studs under the windows. Along the length of the rafters, the bird's mouth fit precisely on the top plate of the stud wall. The rooms were airtight, joints flush, compound smooth and feathered. Inside, he grew a hand of switches. She was the sound of birds, their cacophonous scattering. I'm going to read two more. The one is to lighten it up a little bit, and the last one I'll just give a short spiel about before I read it, because someone in the audience will know this one. All right. Midnight. Loving him was like dancing on a drum. Loving him was like dancing on a drum. Grapes ripe in bursting, fields turned burgundy, scarlet, golden. Loving him was like circling her skin, tracing her curves, and her heart was a bird flying out of her body, like dancing on a drum, she said, in a metal-roofed room with a tuba and bass. Sashmo on his sax, and Vaughn in her summertime, and Loving him was dancing out of their skins and back a week's worth of Saturday nights in a slow opening of Loving him in a cave of firecrackers, their stars falling out of the sky, a full moon, its white eye pressed to the frosted window, and Loving him was dancing on a drum, she said, so when he left, her feet didn't know how to walk. And so I have a dear friend, well, I have several people I know in the audience, but I have a dear friend who has been in my life for 40 years. John Davis, some of you know him, right? Yes. So John and I knew Shelton when he was a poet. We were just talking about it a little bit ago. And John and I have been in a group. John's sort of the baby of the group. He's only been in it 27, did you say?
23.
23. The group's been in existence about 37 years. And so it's a wonderful group. I wish everyone to have such a group and to have such a writing partner. But we met this morning before I came across on the ferry, and I turned in my latest poem to them. And believe me, they don't play softball. They play hardball and knock them out of the park whenever possible. So it's my new poem, and I always try to read the new poem when I do a reading. So this is one of my new ones that went through some work this morning. So John's going to tell me at the end, is it better or do I need to do more? First of all, I have to find the new one. The first title I'll have you know was called A Good Poem Doesn't Have to Have Sex. But they kind of told me, no, that's not a very good title, so I changed it. You can all tell me after, do I need to keep that one or? So the new title is called A Good Poem Shows No Respect. That's what they said. A good poem is a brook that turns into a flood after days of rain, becomes a river with no memory of banks, no respect for recently mowed lawns, for roads or cars with drivers foolish enough or unlucky caught in the torrent. Then the TV drama, rescuers with lights and hope in the dark searching, while the newly birthed river, filled with trees, snakes, even alligators, knows nothing but its lust for the sea, which it may have heard once, in a moonlit night, far away in a meadow, calling like a lover, come, and it does. Thank you,
That's so good. All right, now we're going to have our open mic. And you guys know the drill already. 4 minutes. Don't go over. Don't make me put you on the no-fly list. I will give you a few seconds. When you hear the ding, 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 you have about 3 seconds to finish that line. Audience, you get to make noise. This is not church. You can make all the noise you want. I will announce who's up and who's on deck. We're gonna start with Barb, and then John Davis is on deck.
Hi,
Hi.
I'm a dog person. Last time we had a couple of cat poems, and I have a couple of dog poems for tonight. This first one was a response to writing a poem for a bad poetry contest. And there were 2 lines that we had to put into our poems. One is a buzzard on a dead horse, and a cat yowling on a back fence. My dog digs doggerel when she's not out chasing a buzzard on a dead horse over there to the east, or baying at a cat yowling on a back fence over there to the west. And body naughty limericks, she digs the best. This next one is called Chasing Dean. And the Coolidge that I make reference to is to a painter called Cassius Coolidge, who in around 1903 was hired to do some advertising for a cigar company. So I'm sure you've all seen them, pictures of dogs sitting around a table playing cards and smoking cigars. Okay, so this one is called Chasing Dean. He's like one of those characters in a Coolidge painting. 7 dogs around a card table with Dean holding all 4 aces. Usually he'd stay, but it's a mystery this day when he oozes over the wall like an otter bent on getting out of sight and is gone. He pocketed his winnings, this short-legged mafioso Don, so I head after, intent and sure that he will return to my appeals and treats, but he is long gone down the block. By the time I get his leash, he is out of sight, and this scene strikes me with hilarity. A white-haired woman yelling, "Dean!" as if I'm chasing an errant husband, hustling to corral him with a leash. Come back, I don't care if you play poker. 6 blocks later, I see him still trotting away. He looks back and lifts his leg on the closest bush, moves on. It's another 2 blocks before the next sighting, an apartment complex with kids, his favorite. They talk, and I imagine he smiles, hands out his winnings, opportunities for them to pat his head before he condescends to lead me home, continue playing.
Next poet is John, and Jean is on deck.
Thank you, Michelle, for being a great steward and getting this going and keeping us all there. Susan, wonderful reading. I'd put sex back in the title. How many of you want sex back in her title? There it is. Okay. I agree. You will remember the 8th grade story problems, rate times time equals distance. There was one train coming here and another train there. This one's called Story Problem. 2 trains are racing as 2 trains are wont to do, one at 50 miles per hour from Memphis. Engineer chewing on a blues tune, flicking it around his tongue like a toothpick. The other train is hustling up from Albuquerque at 70 miles per hour. Engineer longing for his darling, singing an empty saddle song, tipping his hat. Which train will arrive at Tulsa first? Memphis is on Central Time. Albuquerque is on Mountain Time. And between them, heading west, a tornado is expected. Though it's guesswork which track will be ripped up. And besides, heading east is a fleecy green sedan, blasting rap, windows down, bass thumping, while prairie dogs, terrified, hump it back into their holes. In my 8th grade rate times time equals distance problems, it was always 2 honest trains chugging. No railroad company wanting a government bailout or union concession. We never had prairie dogs or tornadoes, and there were never any rapper wannabes distracting the engineer. As you know, that engineers are wont to be distracted down the track at some railroad crossing in some town where some baseball player who can't hit a pig's ass with a banjo bears down at batting practice in a semi-pro league and smashes a slider over right field into the window of an oncoming train. And which train? And what's the rap distraction? And why do trains want to race to Tulsa in the first place? We never asked why the trains were racing. So between the blues in my backyard someday train, the darlin', darlin', my stallion's named Marvin train, and the rapper wannabe, yo homie, don't smoke me sedan. America's children are solving the story problems of tomorrow. Call them the M generation, children IM and TM in the AM and PM and listen to their FMs, or is it their iPhones? Their problems are Greenland and Antarctica melting, raising the world's waterline by 20 feet. Which Philippine island will flood first? And how will children resolve the music of Muslims and Jews? They will create cliches, find that the good old days are still good and still old, find that fewer people ride trains when they could be burning up fuel and fooling themselves most of all of the time, as people are wont to do. Thank you.
Oh my God, that brought back such math PTSD for me. Jean is up and Amanda is on deck. This is called Grandfather Time. Begin at the center of the keyboard, a white key my piano teacher addressed as Mother C. She turned time into sound. It emanates from a miniature clock perched on my grandfather's desk in the living room of an English-style cottage that loomed over the cautious bends of Old Mill Road in Pasadena. I would practice there for hours, interrupted every 15 minutes by da 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 da. Westminster notes. Each chord was entrenched into my life, much like my finger muscles as they tried to learn Moonlight Sonata, played without making a mistake. That was then. Now my life takes on a magical dimension, returning north to live with my lover in a place not far from where I was born, Seattle. I was a war baby. My father flew PBYs out of the Aleutian Peninsula. I am asking, I would like to keep hearing my days march in tomorrow with the sound of time. Every 15 minutes. Da 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 da, da 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 da. Without the clock, my ears cannot keep time. Without the clock, they cannot save time. They cannot envision how deep our lives have become, with a plethora of time-honored memories between you and me. I ask you, my love, may I bring my sound of time, my clock, to sit in the place you asked me to share? We can count our time in notes, from 1 to 12, all the deep notes of our lives. Da 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 da, da 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 da, Westminster time. Da 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 da, da 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 da. Time we can count as one. Thank you. Amanda is up and Alex is on deck. Everybody say your name when you come up.
Your name. I know too, Mr. T, he's such a pain, and he also does not like story problems. He says, Jimmy has 47 watermelons. He ate 5 and he lost 12. How old is Jimmy? I'm Amanda Williamson. I have 2 sonnets. One of them is silly, and the other is mine. They're both mine, and they're both Shakespearean. Okay, number 1, because we had Groundhog Day. My woodchuck's eyes are nothing like the sun. A carrot is less orange than her teeth. Were pestilence a game, my woodchuck has won. If hairs be wires, she's steel wool underneath. I have seen roadkill, squished, red and white, but no such colors yet are in her cheek. In steaming compost heaps there's more delight than in the scent glands which near her tail reek. I love to hear her squeak, yet well I know garbage disposals make more pleasing sounds. I grant I never saw a gopher goof. My woodchuck, when she chucks on the ground. And yet, by heaven, I think my woodchuck as rare as any rodent ranked by false compare. All right. So, this is a sonnet that I wrote about my sister and my friend when we were little kids, and a fun day that we had. It's called Going to the Dump. It's spring when woodchucks nibble dandelions in ditches, dainty as you please, and fields of winter wheat have sprouted. Yellow lines of roadside blooms, like fluttering sunshine, yield to the breeze from a passing pickup truck. It bears an old refrigerator, lumber scraps, a rusted stove, a couple cane-backed chairs that someone punched right through, and beer cans, Pabst, and Schlitz. And kids, a gleeful trio, stunned at their luck. The dads in the cab said, "Fine, get in, you little shits." This glorious spring has outdone itself. The kids grin till their teeth go dry in the wind. When the girls' ponytails get tangled, they don't mind. The boys' yellow hair blows like a dandelion. Thanks.
Thank you, Amanda. Alex is up and Sharon is on deck.
Hello, I'm Alex Smith from Seattle. Do we have any February birthday people here? That's it? Usually there's a whole bunch of them. I get to read this poem 1 month a year. I'm a February 8th. It's called February the Runt. Figuring the date out in my head, the old-fashioned way with fingers, and after December it slipped past like a foal to a pony from that old hag November, who just collapsed in the field, all cold and gray. 30 days has September, all the rest have 31, except my February, which has 28. Until every 4 years, I give it 29, then take it back. Who did this? And what were they thinking? I mean, could they not have just taken a day from some of those other adjacent months who could easily cough up their 31, and our dear February would be able to stand up on his own hind legs with a solid 30? But no, February, my birth month, must forever remain the runt of the year. This is a turd from the past, like the Electoral College, the spelling of through and cough and slew. It is high time for reparations, I say. Give February 29 and 30 and take them away from their bloated neighbors, January and March, to be fair. Then following December 31st, you would have a run of January, February, March, and April 30th. That makes perfect sense. And the leap year day, give it to February as reparations. February 31st. Hooray! Usually I have a whole bunch of people say hooray. Parents are everybody who, and at my age, it's everybody who used to have a motorcycle, has a story about their motorcycle and why they don't ride a motorcycle anymore. This is called The Last Motorcycle Ride. The story is old, but the poem is relatively new. I've kept this memory for years and years. The last motorcycle ride. The dog weighed about 80 pounds and was various shades of brown and tan. You'll pardon if I don't recall the breed, as it bolted across a very narrow Bacon Street in Ocean Beach by Poma's Deli. Vehicles packed bumper to bumper along both sides of the road, and I witnessed the hound struck hard broadside by the grill of an oncoming GMC, who did not even have time to brake. Flipping over and over, his legs pawing the air, feverishly trying to regain his footing as he tumbled towards me on my motorcycle, headed opposite, with a friend on the back, wearing my helmet. Time slowed as I watched this disaster tumbling toward us. Close parked cars lined every inch of the street on either side. The truck still moving, driver slack-jawed, brakes not yet applied. My hard choices as I was moving too fast to stop were: 1, lay the bike down, possibly sliding under the truck. 2, stuff it into a vehicle on the right, stay the course and hit the dog, and then who knows what. Everything moved in slow motion, all still in kinetic play. The dog, front and center, was quite alive, frantically flipping over and over like a gymnast, until he finally managed to gain purchase on the macadam and bolt off between parked cars, as the truck and I flashed past each other at an impossible closing speed. And 2 blocks down, I pulled over to breathe heavily and shuddered. Funny how everyone wants to know what happened to the dog. God knows where he ran off to, perhaps to limp home with a story he could not tell. Or maybe to just shake it off like some pro wide receiver. Or maybe curl under a bush to quiver and retch and die, having bequeathed me another 45 years of life. I sold the motorcycle the very next day.
I'm very glad you're here today. Sharon is up and Anne is on deck.
Hi, I'm Sharon Armstrong Ostenson, and I'm kind of a weekend warrior writer and compelled to write some certain things, and especially when they come out of dreams. This one is called The Eye. My dreams are most always about boats, rarely in calm Caribbean seas, rather in dark, treacherous, churning cold water. This night, again the sailboat. I look to see a wall of inky black clouds, racing counterclockwise. Hurricane. Strange silence tucked inside, eyes and ears that disconnect to what surrounds me. Trapped inside a circle of one of nature's most intense shows of force. Are we not now in the eye? Our bubble-wrapped society, existential threat circle? Atmospheric rivers morphing viruses, manic insanity for power, guns in free fall. My rational threat scanner is on overdrive. Okay, this is another one. This one didn't come out of a dream, but it's something that I bought to remind me. Birdcage. I once bought a birdcage, not one to hold feathered beauties. It holds a candle now, door wide open, a reminder that I am free, free of my caged thoughts, worries, resentments, and past darkness. My bird circles back, wanting to return and close the door, safe to remain, angry, afraid, and resentful. I imagine again the door opening. My freedom returns, if just for a moment. This morning I carry my cup out onto the sunlit deck and hear the chatter of birds at the feeder. Under the blue spruce, squirrels too have come for the feast, free to cavort with one another, scampering off with their prize. I have not noticed lately my birdcage, door open, hanging under the porch eave. I noticed it today and remembered to fly.
Thank you, Sharon. Anne is up and Diane is on deck.
It's interesting to be on this island for so long and know somebody like Sharon, since our boys were little boys and they're now in their 30s. To see so many people that I know from other things, other places. So this has been a very light night, so I thought I'd bring it down. You know, because this one, to start out, is called Ashes on the Surf. I write, finally emptied of words that opened him to me. 3 short years since we put away, threw away, or gave away all that he had in life, he kept private and generous. 3 years since his heart gave out, and after giving away crucial body parts, returned to us in a leaf-pasted box. We divided his ashes into 2 portions for the hungry Pacific. Dropped one at the ferry's stern, praying and tossing tulips into the churning November swells between Port Townsend and Whidbey. White fingers of foam curled around the leaf-covered box, folding it beneath black water. The second bag we delivered to the Navy on a destroyer at certain coordinates. They slid him off the starboard side with many other compatriots. Compostable bags bobbing until they took on water like tiny leaky barges. Now towing this western surf, steely clouds rolling above and the current whispering in the tide, I wonder, Will the great swirling Pacific unite him? That was for my brother Brian. This, you can let off on the cut, even though Michelle's like said it could be crazy. And Susan, I'm so glad you read. You are just such a joy. And I got to be next to Susan in Centrum for 2 or 3 years. We happened to be in the same little space looking out over the water, and it was just delightful just knowing you were there, and you were so quiet. But you didn't like be making a lot of noise next door, that would be weird. This one is called, I'm gonna read another downer and then I'll read the upper one, sort of. This one, perhaps you had, I was a teacher here on the island, and this was about a teacher that didn't like me. A teacher's memory of 2nd grade. I remember hiding behind my desktop, flipped up to block my reddening face. I stared into the gray metal box that held my pencils, paper, crayons, uncompleted math papers, a state map partially colored. Mrs. Stone, that was really her name, stood over me, staring hard. Your brother, she said again, would have finished his work before class. Classmates held their breath, not a titter. She may as well have slammed the desktop down on my hands or used the paddle hanging beside the door. Most days she kept me in for recess, the air echoing the hard silence. Now we'll cheer up, and then on you go. Now, so you all are probably familiar with Naomi Shihab-Nye's, before you know what kindness is, you must lose things. Before you know, after Naomi Shihab-Nye. Others might have squirmed away when you reached in through the window of the car to put your heavy gloved construction worker hand on my trembling shoulder. It was 4 a.m. I didn't squirm. Paul, having fallen and not awakened, airlifted off island to Seattle. The ferry still parked and sleeping, first run 2 hours away. I thought to drive around. At the bridge, a mile north, construction. Waiting to be flagged through, I sat shaken. Realized that the drive was folly, to turn around, challenging. You, the flagger, beckoned. I explained my need to return to wait at the empty dock. I'll help you turn around, you said. But first, let's say a prayer. Not a car in sight, not another worker, the bridge lit bright, was silent. I sat still, closed my eyes. I took a long breath as you spoke, your hand heavy and warm on my trembling shoulder. Thank you.
Mrs. Stone had some issues.
She like my brother.
The only human on this planet to have projection issues, nothing to do with it. Diane is up and Gary is on deck.
This is so nice. Thank you, Michelle. It's so nice to hear everybody's take on poetry and their feelings, and what a variety is here tonight. I really love that. Okay, my poems are usually short, so I might do 3. I like giving inanimate objects life. I guess it's called personification. And this poem does that for me. It makes me feel relaxed, and it's my idea if I would get to float down a river. I call it rapture. The clear, cool flow of water carries me downstream. Cedar trees along the bank look down in envy. Clouds smile a wish to join my journey. Shiny river stones, gently kissed by current, watch me pass. A boulder, century smooth, gently brushes my body. I pass deep pools where forest critters come to drink. Sounds blend into river and wind tiptoes through the forest. Rhythm sings a tune of tomorrow and tomorrow. I've written other poems about the moon singing its praises, but this one night I felt it was playing with me, so I played back. Luna, you peek out bright light to a darkened sky, then slyly slip beneath the cloud. Your tease does not go unnoticed. A playful glimpse at planet Earth. You man on the moon, cheese on a cracker. My last one has to do with when I am birthing a poem, how it all comes about. I call it the birth of words. They lay in notebooks, scratch paper, the back of grocery lists and napkins, the whirl of words, lines of a poem written in a moment, bits and bobs of feeling, angst, joy, contemplation. They lay like bleached flotsam until one starts to rise, screaming to the surface. Finish my thought. I need to have a voice. I need to live. Birth me.
True Ars Poetica. Gary is up and Laura is on deck.
My name is Gary Wood. I'm a closet poet, coming out with appreciative, the last poem about writing itself, because I've written a lot about writing. Ought you had given over to walking the giant circle. Wait a minute. Okay. The creative storm comes up as a gust across the waters, takes you on, strains the mast, rigging taut, the rudder, a mind of its own, tack set, bow cutting into the crests that toss you, bobbing, exuberant, tiny, a cork in the sea. Hold firm to the rail, a bucking stallion, weightless, falling, threatening to drop you into eternity. Better had you sailed well-charted waters, held closer to the coast, set course in the traffic channels of traders and merchants. Better had you rooted at land, fallen asleep at the mill, grinding away at the stone, worn somewhat by the sweat, the blood of the many others before. Ought you had given over to walking the giant circle, cracking open dirt-born grains of life, rendering food that others might live. O noble cause, the Father's bones may rest. So what right doth come upon one such as I, giving leash to creation's spark, to ponder cause, puzzle justice, and the unsolvable disparity of human state and form. It is only the audacious fool who turns out toward the horizon drawn by the yonder mysteries, listening for the songs unheard, the wind howls, 'tis no assured return. Question therefore comes their permission for the ideation-struck simpleton to take leave, sit down in the clamoring midst of life all about, take pen in hand and write. So I'll just leave it at that.
One more.
Here, one more.
Good.
Don't worry, you already succeeded, so you're okay.
It's all good.
Okay. Well, this will be in the same way. The pen be but a hollow reed he holds, ink flowing from the reservoirs unnamed, untold. As he writes out these words, sputtering bold, a squiggled group of lines in ink upon a page, and there is magic, as if voicing the inner sage, which shows itself as urgent yet unafraid. For we dwell in myriad minds of endless hunger, so busy about its business, O bumbling wonder. And the pen, in turn, grasps him by the hand and casts him down upon the bed of wonders and takes him over as if an urgent lover, a shower of whisperings under cover. And as he surrenders unto her essence charm, the words flow like a fitful thunderstorm. Raindrops pelting upon the panes outside, sorrows, recognitions abide, things known now, not before, his history seen, an open door, seemed but a fool let loose upon the world. He writes anyway and spills his ink out upon the white of the universe, a craziness of being, not bound in this concreted world. And as he allows, she takes him still, draws down into his breath, into his core, and fills his heart again.
This is a tough crowd. You're not allowed to go over and you're not allowed to go under. Laura is up and Tamara Broadwood is on deck.
Just making sure that's really me. Is it Laura or Laura? Excellent, then I will speak. I didn't want to take someone else's spot. Hi, I am not actually a poet. I am a climate scientist who is occasionally touched by poetry that just comes to me. I'm going to read one poem that anyone will understand. I'm going to read a second poem that's going to require a little bit of translation. I've been told by my non-science climate-y friends. The first poem is called Sheep Are Not Ambien. Counting sheep to fall asleep is ridiculous, declares my son. Of course he's right, especially the cartoon version where they leap over your bed in an arc like an ovine steeplechase through your room, which would not be relaxing at all. On the other hand, you could imagine yourself on a grassy green hill surrounded by sheep. As you count them, more and more and more appear, or there may be hundreds milling about to begin with, impossible to count their sheep brownie in motion. Perhaps if you were to lay your head on the warm, woolly shoulder of just one, you could drift off to sleep without counting any at all. Okay, for those of you who don't think about climate change 24/7, 365 days a year, except for that leap year where I get to think about it one extra freaking day, thank you so much. Does everyone know what 350 means? Okay, 350 parts per million of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is all we would like it to be. It is much higher than that now. We'd actually like it to be 280. That number will be useful in understanding what the heck I'm talking about in this poem. This poem is called Bus Stop. While our elected officials have been driving planet Earth drunk on campaign contributions and the fumes of fossil fuel dollars, unconcerned about our destination, we ride on this lone conveyance, having consulted the now faulty route map, paid our fair fare, and pulled the request stop cord to get off at 350th Street. But there is no response. No slowing toward the curb. Instead, we speed up, passing 400th, the windows blurring the apocalypse. Nearby, Uncle Bernard tells whoever will listen that the whole system perpetuates this disaster, while Cousin Barbara yells, "Stop the goddamn bus!"
Thank you, Barbara. Tamara Rockwood is up, and Tamara Rosen is on deck.
I don't have your journals. They're in my minivan, and I have the truck, but I've been trying to get it to you. My name is Tamara Rockwood, and I'm running Poetry Corners. We had a journal printed last year, and Tamara never got hers, and I have them. And I'm gonna get them to you before I print out the next one. Maybe. So this is a poem that I just recently had published a few weeks ago, and I was spending some time reading with Grimm's fairy tales, and I always found it really interesting, the body parts that they remove, because there's very clear body parts. There's the heart, there's the tongue, but there's one called the Handless Maiden. And I thought removing hands from a woman was interesting, because what does that mean? What does it symbolize? And it really struck me as removing her agency of work. And then I was thinking about all of the agencies that we struggle with, especially as women. And so I wrote a poem called The Handless Maiden. I know, we know, we know. We must focus on the now, focus on the present, and also plan for the future. For what, we ask? For the future, stupid. For the thread we feel pull us, it is our ace in the hole. Words we know like siblings, which we hate and we love. We argue against and for, words will reject us. We know how. They get us, they get us. The thread we feel pull on our tongue to speak, to push, for purpose, for fun. The women, there are women everywhere. We must bond as women, mustn't we? As myriad of waves, some leading to sisters, some threads spinning off women we know. We know, must we, mustn't we? Love all of ourselves, us, she, and our failure, we know. Don't we suffer from failure, or do we? Do we know how to fail, since we can only fail once, maybe a time? Or are we trying to fail? We're trying to win. We know the failure happens when we know how to fail again. I know, you know, the faces of the world. You know the Tigris, the hummus, the unease, the airline seats, the taxi lines, the lines, the lines, the lines, on the sand, on the walls, on faces, on fingers. We know these fingers. These are my fingers. These are your fingers walking across maps we know. We know, I know the papers of shelves, of stands, of nightstands. You know, and now I know what scribbles in the margins. You wrote what you know. I know my voice. I know your ears. We know the sounds of the lips that whisper or spit. We know the sound of our voice. We know where the sun also shines and flowers also grow. Thread your fingers between our chairs, lean near, and we breathe. We know.
Thank you, Tamara. And now we have Tamara and Lisa is on deck.
Hi, I'm Tamara Lisa Teresa Rosa Lizzie. Since you've been gone, I've taken to my two hands, pretending they are enough. Imagining your touch, closing my eyes while recalling my first taste of cotton candy. Writing my way out through tender fingers, behind closed doors and flickering lights. At night, through screens, dreams, and a third eye, I visit you. Pulling my hair, squeezing my skin, tracing every bit of sin. Loving into and over the missing, aching parts. Making myself the home I've been looking for ever since. Since you've been gone, I've taken to my two hands, pretending they are enough. I regret the things I've told you, the times I leaned into gossip, the urge to break down others, to ease my own, our own breakdown. I am human after all, perhaps too careful with your opinion to honestly exert my own. Caving into my perception of your wanting, I imagine blanks filled in, and it's likely I filled them in wrong, because the filling in of blanks is almost always incorrect, a brain habit which requires retraining and focus. I will adjust the optics, my emotional, spiritual positioning, clear view my intentions, rise up from regret and petty considerations, not only to survive, but to flourish. The best days end in fried rice, rescuing the last of the veggie drawer, watching onions and carrots dance in the pan, with some Sunday, a little bit of Tuesday, and garlic, always garlic. The best days are a pop-up book of surprises, reminding you, you are not in control. Forcing you to laugh and therefore breathe, causing the disruption needed to snap you out of your own way. The best days brim over with folded and sometimes even put away laundry. The subtle peppermint scent of your new eco-human-friendly detergent and wool ball clanking in the dryer, making you feel like you're doing just a little bit better job caring for, well, just caring. The best days drown in the now, when you realize you are a leaf being carried down the river, and the only thing you have to do, your one and only job, is to be you, just floating. Maybe someone will see you, even snap a picture of your poetic, perfect naturing, and maybe nobody will see you.
Thank you. Now, Lisa will close us out, and Susan will then have a few more words.
Thanks, Michele and Susan. I once took a class from the two of you together. It was wonderful. My name is Lisa. This poem is called Venting. We meet for lunch, sound off about our husbands, government corruption, our various ailments. We let loose over our sandwiches, open doors crusted with rust, wedged with torn and tired rags, or newly lubricated with yesterday's irritations. We tell ourselves better to vent than to stuff. Mid-morning in summer, the hen next door intrudes with her Chinese water torture call. Bonk, 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 bonk. Starts slow, gets faster, louder. She's venting too. Her egg, wrapped in the tissue of her uterus, moves through her vent. Yes, that's what it's called. Until she pushes it out of her body, a kind of inside-out trick. My egg, attached to the wall of my uterus, clung there for 9 months, zygote to egg, to fetus, to child. I labored 14 hours to shunt my son down the birth canal, 10 fingers, 10 toes, nearly turning myself inside out. My child was twisted, shoulder first, jammed against my backbone. He needed freedom. We both wanted release. This baby, shrouded in his torn blue caul, pulled through the cut across my body, mouth open, gulps new air. This is called breaking ground. When my father enters the room, we get out of his chair. My mother serves him first: macaroni, beef, boiled beans. Each spring we pull weeds, pick rocks, clean the soil for tomato plants, the patch of squash. I work beside him, bent under the weight of his insults about mother. She smells like a dead fish down there. I left, of course, returned when my son was 3, the house stuffed and filthy, the garden a wandering jungle. We search for root remnants in the old riverbed soil, walk between crooked rows looking for beans like green treasure beneath broad leaves. We find only stones that ping the old gray buckets. Dead now, the old man, his garden. Back home, my son takes small stones from his pocket, places them one by one in the dirt beside his tomato plant. This is one I've been working on for a while. It's called Milkweed. I've no memory of the milkweed's blossoms, only its sea green pods that summon me, moth to candle flames covered in soft barbs. I can't let them be, crack them open like shown peas, find the gossamer floss, the flat brown seeds anchored to soft white sails, scoop the feathers from the pod's hollow, puff hard, set them in silver flight. Monarchs were common as dirt all summer, slow flapping their wings on the milkweed's flower heads, tiny geishas waving orange and black fans. One day, the butterflies drift south, not much missed. I reverie across vacant pastures, crush rhizomes underfoot, tug pods from dusty stalks, one after another. What did I know about pesticides, endangered pollinators, the mowing of milkweed along roadsides and railroads? It was the feel of smooth silk, the puff of light, the release I was after.
Susan now will have the final word. I have one more announcement. I forgot to say this earlier. On April 22nd, which is a Sunday afternoon, I will be teaching a workshop at the library on writing poetry 101. So there's that. Here's Susan. And thank you all for coming.
Thank you for coming. This is one of the best open mic readings I've ever been to. And so I thank all of you. All very different, all emotional and grounded at the same time. I want to thank Michele for inviting me. She is a dynamo and she is doing good things for poetry on Bainbridge. She's also doing good things about bringing people together. And lastly, any of you heard, well, I'm sure many of you have heard, the word Fibonacci? So there is a journal that publishes Fibonacci's, poems that are Fibonacci's. And one of our prompts that Michele and I did was to write some fibs. The journal is called Fib. So I am going to hand out, I don't know if I have enough, but I made copies that tell you about this magazine if you want to try writing a fib. And I included a poem, one of the poems that I published. But I want to again thank you very much for welcoming me.
All right, and this concludes our evening. Thank you very much. Susan's gonna stand over there and sell her books.